All right, good evening and welcome to this District 2 Advisory Board, City of Wichita. Super glad everyone is here today. It's Monday, March 13th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. and I'm Becky Tuttle, and it's my privilege and honor to serve as the City Council member representing District 2. We have a really short agenda today, but we have a couple important guests who are going to give us some great updates. So we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll go and have everyone from the District Advisory Board introduce themselves. And to our guests, one of the things that we do is we always have our District Advisory Boards tell us who they are, what perfect timing, welcome Tracy, what neighborhood or neighborhood association, homeowner association they represent, and their favorite thing about Wichita, and they can't repeat something somebody else has already said. So Jennifer was the first one here. So we're going to go ahead and start with Jennifer and do the folks online, and then we'll come here to the group. So Jennifer, thank you for joining us this evening. If you want to kick off the introductions.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jennifer McDonald. I represent Dublin Court. And my favorite thing about Wichita, because it's spring break, is our teachers and our educational system. So hope all of our teachers are enjoying a much needed, probably week off, and we're grateful for all that they do for our kids.
I was cracking up because thinking you really appreciate them since your kids aren't in school this week, right?
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for joining us this evening. Alicia.
Good evening, everyone. Alicia Sanchez, Sycamore Village over at 22nd Rock area. My favorite thing about Wichita, I think the number of nonprofit organizations that serve our community is one of my favorite things, as I see a number of things happening right now. So that's one of my favorite things.
Thank you, Alicia. Bruce, you want to go ahead and go next?
My name is Bruce Gass. I'm here of my own free will and representing the Chisholm Creek Homeowners Association. And I'm so glad to be here early on the list. I enjoy the wind in Wichita.
You are the only person I know.
You don't have to worry about my hair, so I love the wind.
I've never heard anyone say that. Okay,
Okay,
I'm glad.
all right.
Well, you got a lot of what you love.
My name is Corey Butler. I'm the Community Services Representative for District 2, so I'm not on the advisory board, but my favorite thing about Wichita is Cowtown. I was there Saturday night for 80s prom themed murder mystery, and it was so much fun.
That's awesome. 80s prom theme and murder mystery.
Yeah.
That's a lot to pack in one thing. All right, Sam.
I'm Sam Lindeman and I represent Bonnie Ray. And tonight my favorite thing about Wichita is being involved with this meeting and the opportunity to do this. I think it's always nice knowing what's going on and
Thank you. That's awesome.
Good education.
good education.
Hi, sorry I'm late, Faith Martin. I represent East Ridge Neighborhood Association, and I've recently traveled, and I can tell you it is so wonderful to be back because I love eating local, and there's just, you travel and there's not a lot of local places and a lot of chain places, and we are so blessed to have so many local restaurants and so many entrepreneurs that have amazing food. So I love our local food scene and I miss it a lot, so.
Good evening, I'm Tim Johnson. I represent the Willowhead neighborhood. I think my favorite thing about Wichita today is Chisholm Creek Park. I spend usually 2 days a weekend walking or riding 4+ miles in that park. And I really love that amenity.
Oh, good evening. I'm sorry for being late. Tracy Adams with Harrison Park Community. And what I love about Wichita today is that this is the home of Freddy's.
Oh, yeah.
John Baker, represent Pine Meadows, and today I appreciate the sunshine.
Yeah.
And I'm Roman Rodriguez. I live in Sycamore Village, Waterford Edition. And I would say, so we've had some needs for different medical facilities and doctors and nurses recently, and I'm very grateful for the amazing medical facilities, doctors, nurses, staff that we have here in Wichita. We're truly blessed with a great medical community, and when you need it, it's nice to know that they're available.
Thank you for saying that. You can come from a healthcare and public health background. And
Yeah.
so really,
We
people,
are
you,
lucky.
yeah, you don't know what you have until you need it,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
thank you for sharing. Thank you to everyone for being here. Next is approval of the agenda. We were chatting before everybody got here that we're used to having about 4 or 5 zoning cases every month for the last few months. So this is a little bit different agenda, but I would entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
All right, next on the agenda is approval of the minutes for February 13th. As always, Corey did a great job with the minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Okay, does anyone need to abstain because they weren't here? Okay, Jim wasn't here last. We missed.
And
Awesome.
Alicia,
And
Has
Alicia.
yes.
Thank you, Alicia.
Mhm.
Appreciate it. So does anyone, next is our public agenda, does anyone want to speak to an item that isn't on the agenda? Okay, great, then we'll go right into it. So staff reports. So first, we have Sally, who has joined us this evening. Sally Stang is our housing director. She does a phenomenal job. Always so impressed with her knowledge, enthusiasm, the way she can explain complicated issues. Everything with housing is complicated and more acronyms than you can ever quite name. So there was some question from a couple of the DAG members about some of the initiatives that's going on in housing. And so we asked Sally if she'd just come and give a quick overview and then answer any questions. Yeah.
Yep, right here. Let me get.
Yep. So Sally, you have to tell us your favorite thing about Wichita.
Sure. I've only been here about 3.5 years, and so I came in during, just before COVID. And so it's been a little bit of a bumpy road, but the thing I really do love about Wichita is people want to know their neighbors and take care of each other, right? And I have lived in a community where that wasn't the case, and it's kind of what dragged me back to the Midwest, so. Yes, we love that people know each other and take care of each other. So I was asked to come today to talk about the landlord incentive program. This is a program that was launched, actually approved by the council in December and took effect January 1st. So the incentive program was to incentivize landlords to accept the housing choice voucher. We watched there's newscasts from around the country that most communities are struggling in this area. The voucher program has been around actually since the late 1970s. Before that, it was a certificate program. Before that, it was just public housing. It's been around a very, very long time. But our current rental market has caused circumstances in which makes it really challenging for people who qualify for housing choice voucher, which provides rent assistance, to find units to lease. I can tell you right now, we have over 700 approved families out on the street looking for places to live. Very, very challenging. Our voucher program, 68% of our voucher holders that are currently leased up are elderly or disabled households. So very, very challenging. Oftentimes we have a lack of ADA accessible housing or housing that meets the needs of people with mobility issues. So that coupled with other challenges in our market are making it very challenging. So
Is that legal
is what legal.
to have housing that's not ADA compliant?
Absolutely depends on what it's built.
Okay.
That your home was probably not ADA, does not meet UFAS, the uniform physical conditions that have to meet for true ADA. 36-inch doors, roll under cabinetry, grab bars, and other bathrooms. People just didn't build it, especially if you go back a couple of decades. It really wasn't thought about very frequently. It wasn't until the updated ADA rules in 1992 that started to implement in new construction. So none of anything built before 1992 doesn't meet UFAS standards. There was a previous ADA standard, but it was not near what it is today. I do recommend, if anyone's thinking about building their forever home, is that they take those things into consideration. It's much cheaper to do it when you're building it. Widen the doorways, put in a 36 instead of a 34. No step entry if you can. Those kind of things are really important. When you do those things after the fact, it's so much more expensive, and we look at that. So in addition to the current market, there are stigma around housing systems, despite the fact that the majority of the folks that use it are elderly and disabled. rascally little folks, right? No. They're presumed that they're likely to cause more damage, not fulfill lease obligations, get evicted, abandon units. To address those concerns, and try and incentivize landlords to lease to assisted tenants, the Wichita Housing Authority Landlord Incentive Program was established to cover and mitigate some of excessive damages or vacancy loss that could occur from leasing to an assisted tenant. So there, we have seen dramatic increases in rents, 19% in 11 months. Rents have gone up. Yeah. Utility costs, 18.9%. It's pretty amazing that they were very, very close. When you couple both of those together, we're seeing a lot of people priced out of their current tenancies. We're seeing $200, sometimes $300 a month rent increases at lease renewal. Very, very hard for someone on a fixed income to be able to absorb that. We've also had a sale of at least a dozen, I think the number is 14, we're confirming in the last 2, apartment complexes that have sold to out-of-state owners that have just come in and said, we don't do assistance. We don't want to have to follow your inspection, your condition protocol, which to be honest with you is not very high, right? It has to be decent, safe, and sanitary. But that's enough to have some landlords say, I don't want to deal with you, your paperwork, your inspectors, and we're just not going to lease. So we lost hundreds of units out of the market that used to accept the voucher that no longer accept.
And if you don't mind me just asking a question, what happens to the people who are currently living in those?
So when they're bought, they have to hold up, they have to keep the lease until the end of the term. Whether that's 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, but at the end of the term, those clients are told to go find another unit, and there's such a tight market that people I've had people who were in their unit 25 years, all of a sudden being told by the landlord, because it got bought out, you have to move. And you have to move in 60 days, or we're gonna evict you. It's unfortunate. So the incentives allow the programs to be more competitive in the current marketplace, because we are capped on the amount of rents we can improve on the voucher program. Those rents are set at the 40th percentile. They're from rents that were from about 2.5 years ago. So they're not keeping pace, which also makes it harder for these families to lease up, right? So this program has been funded with $250,000 in American Rescue Plan Act, so federal ARPA funds. And it is possible we may be able to augment that with additional emergency rental assistance funds, because as there are opportunities, we continue to apply for those to see if we can bring more into our community. So the incentives are broken down here. So for a new landlord that's never leased on the Section 8 program, and when I say never, we're looking back to 2000. That's how far back the computer system will go. Have you ever been a landlord on the program before? If not, it's a one-time $1,000 bonus to that landlord.
Now, Section 8, is that what you still call this? I thought they.
It's the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program.
Okay.
Yeah, there's other types of Section 8. With the voucher program, the subsidy stays with the client. We issue them a voucher. They go into the private marketplace, try to find a landlord who's willing to lease under the terms of the voucher. And then we provide the rent assistance. The other type of Section 8, we have multiple complexes in the area that have what they call project-based Section 8. That's where HUD has an agreement with the owner, and every unit in the building has subsidy. So whoever moves into the unit has subsidy while they're there. If they move out, they lose it. With a voucher, they can move into a private unit. So long as they stay in compliance, they want to move, their subsidy goes with them. So it's a little bit different, but it's all under Section 8 of the Housing Act of 1930. We have a $500 returning landlord bonus. So if you've been a landlord in the past, but haven't been in 6 months, since it's been 6 months or more since your last tenancy, we'll do a $500 landlord incentive bonus payment for coming back. Then we have a $250 bonus for each tenant that the landlord leases up above the baseline. This is the incremental increase. We're trying to encourage landlords to take on more assisted clients. That part gets a little confusing for some. But if I have a big complex and they have 15 clients at the end of November, and at the end of January, because it actually started in January, they have 13, they're not getting any bonus, they went down. If they have 16, they get 1, because they increased by 1. Where that gets complicated is I have some complexes that have 150 clients, and it's like 4 moved out, 5 moved in, 5 moved in, they get 1, right? Some of them are like, hey, we have 5 new leases. I'm like, yeah, but you had 4 people go off. So it's just those incremental increases. And then we have a portion of the funds set aside for damages. If a client were to damage a unit or get evicted and leave it with unpaid rent, during the initial term, we can reimburse the landlord. If they renew, that's not bad. But during the initial term, and let me tell you, we actually had a landlord incentive program in 2020. But it was specifically for landlords who were taking people coming from homelessness. The funding came from the CARES Act. And we were really, really concerned about the spread of COVID-19 in homeless shelters. And so we created the incentive program. Did not have the bonuses, but it had the damage, the risk mitigation fund for damages and unpaid rent. And we had that program active for 18 months. And we had 0 grants, not 1. We ended up having to terminate it because the funding, CARES funding, had to be expended by a certain period of time. And because when we let people know up front when it was expiring in June 21. But it says a lot that we had a risk mitigation fund in the past. And we had 0 claims. And that was with people who were coming straight from homelessness, and we had 0 claims. So do I think we're gonna have a run-in on lots of damages? No. And of course, we have the move-in inspection. We will require pictures and receipts. This is not just a landlord didn't do their job, right? And wants to submit for a claim that they're not really eligible for. Okay? So we need to be able to see the pictures, do an inspection if we need to be able to warn. So some debate, and then what's a landlord? I know. What's a landlord? It's either the legal owner and their corresponding tax ID, okay, or the property manager if they're under a property management agreement. Okay, could be either or. A lot of people own a property, but they don't manage it. Right? They hire a firm, they have a legal management fee or management agreement with a property manager. It could be either or. How we determine someone's a new landlord, we review the property ownership on the Sedgwick County Appraiser's website. Who owns this property? To see who's the owner. We do this anyway, anytime we lease someone up, because we don't want to pay someone who's not eligible. And trust me, people try. They try to go, here, yeah, I own this property. It's like, yeah, no, you don't. And then, but if it recently sold, sometimes the appraiser site's a little behind, right? It might be. So we're like, okay, if you just bought it, then you need to bring us the closing documents that show that you actually purchased this property. And then we have to get vendor registration forms from them. The finance verifies that the name of the vendor and their tax ID align with the IRS. Okay? Because we've had, especially during the emergency rent assistance days, people attempt to get paid where they weren't eligible. And then if the payments are to be made to a management company or someone other than the name that's on the property, we have to have that legal documentation. Okay. So this is activity today. The program started January 1st, 2023. And we were looking at new landlords who came on the program in January and February. But that leasing incentive goes back to how many did they have under contract on November 30th? And it's the incremental increase. Now they could have had an increase to January. Well, then we're looking at the higher, right? February. We want to see that ink is increasing. So that is what we've expended to date.
How many renters have been
Affected by this?
housed?
Oh, even, well, right now we have just under 2,900 households are housed under the voucher program. We have 3,123 vouchers.
Since January with this program?
No, one, I'm saying overall. You can do the first one was 87 new leases, is the 21,750. That's divided by 250 with 2 new brand new landlords. The second month, it was 63, I have to do the math in my head again, for the 16,250. Now, January was a little higher, I expected it to be a little higher, because again, remember, it was that incremental increase over a 2-month period, so we were looking at November. Now we'll be doing this every month from here on out. But, so this is where we are at this point. We've had a lot of interest since the program was announced. And it sometimes can take a little while to get things processed. So people who've moved in mid-February might not even be processed yet. The landlord actually has 60 days to return the lease and contract back to us. So we may see a pickup in a couple of months. It's very fun.
How long would they have to stay in the program for it to be successful, like 12 months, 6 months?
Well, the lease has to be the first lease has to be for 12-month period. Then the landlord can renew either month to month or year to year thereafter.
Now let's, the properties. What about residential properties? They fit in this too, right?
Sure.
Now, I've got a couple people from neighborhoods here. I'm really concerned.
Okay.
You know, in a big apartment building, I can see it. I think it's perfect. But I am really concerned about neighborhoods. We've got rentals alone and they're just driving. I mean, we work hard to try to keep our homeowners' values up and keep our neighborhood attractive for new people. I mean, we work hard on this. To me, this is so detrimental to what we're doing. And that's
Bad
why I
landlords
asked
are
you to come in.
detrimental. Bad landlords, bad property owners
But-
are detrimental.
And I almost bet, now, let me say something else. I went to Topeka several years ago on a housing affair with Wichita. And the one thing that really bugged me, it seemed like a lot of our legislators, I hate to say it, were slumlords, property managers or something. And, you know, I can just see them, they're, you know, they help themselves. But this is not helping most neighborhoods, I don't think. I mean, I see this as, I've got one house right down the street from me that they rented it and they rented for 3 or 4 years. And they actually had me come in and look at it. I mean, every wall in that house, they just destroyed it, thousands and thousands of dollars damage. And of course, rentals, now, like I say, I don't mind it in a big building or something, but you know, the outside property, they don't take care of the lawns, they don't take care of anything, so that really drives down residential neighborhoods. That's what I'm really concerned about.
Your problem really should be addressed to that property owner, because the
How
owner
do we
has
do that?
all the
Oh,
power.
okay, how do we do it? We have no power over that owner. We
And
have no power.
if they're not keeping up their lawn, you can contact Central Inspections at MABCD, and they will actually cite them if there is a
I
violation.
hate to say it, I live in Bonnie Gray. And I love the inspection, MABCD department, we deal with them a lot. But they, you know, we're a decent neighborhood, I mean, they've got real problems out there, they go, I hate to say it, they don't care.
I disagree with that. So we have a lot of rentals in our neighborhood too, and I don't think people would consider us a nice neighborhood. And they came and spoke to our neighborhood association. We had people literally fixing cars on their lawns and had like white supremacy signs. And
Yeah.
we made it complaints, and those people don't live in our neighborhood anymore. Central Inspection came out and cited them and fined them, and they were gone in a month. Those
Well-
people couldn't pay the fines and they said you can't do
Need the
this.
contract.
And they
first.
moved out because Central Inspection said, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that. And it had nothing
I
to do
hate
with
to
the
say
hate
it, we get
messages.
along well with Central
It
Inspection. We
had to
haven't had
do with
that.
the fact you can't have this on your property, you can't have this many cars, you can't have this heavy equipment. But they were a blight in the neighborhood, and Central Inspection came out and did their job. And they have been doing a great job in our neighborhood, cleaning up. They were understaffed for COVID.
They still are.
And now they are staffed up and they are doing their job. And we can't say NIMBY. We can't say not in my backyard, but in other people's backyard when we have a housing problem. We have to have the elderly and the disabled have to have a place to stay. I'm not a big fan of putting more money in slumlords' pockets, but if we have landlords that are taking care of their properties and doing their
We
job.
can't control it.
But if we have landlords that aren't doing their job, I'll call Central Inspection and make them come do their job. Because it's
And if
not.
they're assisted by us, we'll go out and do an inspection. Where we don't have control is if we don't have an assistance contract there. If we have an assistance contract, I can send my inspector to them. If we don't, And we are dealing with, and I hate to say the word, a slumlord, and yes, there are slumlords out there. I can't do anything about it, but MABCD can do something, right? And the landlord has all the power. If they have a bad tenant that's causing a problem, where the tenant destroyed the walls, the landlord wasn't doing their job. The landlord needed to be in that unit more frequently to see that that was occurring.
And guess what?
They did.
This particular landlord, they actually moved out, this family, and I was so, I mean, they had 8 kids living in this house. I don't know how many adults, people coming and going, all nationalities. I mean, I really felt sorry for this whole household. And then they finally moved out, and we went down and I met the new guy that moved in. Because he had a refrigerator and stuff out front, we were trying to tell him how to get rid of it. And he had plaster and stuff all over. I said, oh man, you're out of order. He said, oh, I got kids. You know, big holes in walls. It's doing it again. I mean, I don't know, I'm getting really frustrated with rent.
Yes, Bruce.
I'd like to say something. I think you and I have met. I think you came to my retirement after 9 years on the block grant committee. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
One of my daughters is virtually homeless because of mental illness. And she has, of course, an unwed mother. And the apartment association behind Eastgate, I don't remember their name, but there's a pretty good sized group there. They actually prevented her from being homeless and gave her 6 months free rent in one of their apartments. Completely voluntary, no pressure except from a phone call from the Women's Abuse Center. So I'm cool with some of the landlords, you know, that's a good thing. And I'm glad you're there. It seems to me like you're the main element between the homeless and housing, so I appreciate that. I was wondering, when you say there are 700 folks or families needing housing right now, where does that number come from?
It's actually more than that needing housing. We have over 4,000 families on the waiting list. We've actually had to pull 700 names and actually we pulled more than that, turn 700 families eligible to go out and try and lease up because we're so unsuccessful. There's so many people who cannot find a unit that for every unit we need to fill, we need to send 4 people on the street because 3 will fail. And that's because of the housing situation we're in right now. And it's very, very unfortunate because those are elderly households. Those are families with young children. It includes a lot of people coming from homelessness because we do have specific homelessness vouchers and they are in that tally. But only about 150 in that tally are homelessness vouchers.
So that's 700 households.
Families, yep.
How would you break that 700 down? Just 150 of them might be homeless, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then how many of them would be single, married with children, ages?
So like I said, 68% is what we're averaging is pretty solid across that are elderly or disabled. 68%.
68%, I'm sorry.
Yeah, are elderly or disabled. Or both.
Elderly or disabled.
Or both.
So elderly is anybody over 65?
62.
62.
62 by definition.
So if you looked at this, if you broken down Wichita into areas, I mean, I'm sure that we have in this side of town, apartment communities or single family homes that are participating in some kind of program.
You do.
Section 8, voucher program, whatever, but what are those numbers like? 700 is across the SMSA.
Yes, it's 700 families at this point that have vouchers in their hands. And it's not just here in Wichita, they can take them, they can use them in Butler County, they can use them in Hardy County outside the city of Newton, anywhere in Sedgwick County. I mean, we got them all like, okay, get time on here. Like, we're doing outreach to landlords in other communities too. But we have 700 families who qualify right now, have been qualified for the program to receive rent assistance. And we're gonna be lucky if 1 in 4 actually successfully.
So is it the landlord credit requirements that perhaps they say, sorry, can't approve you or whatever.
It's that combination of this
Past-
spike in
past
rent.
performance.
It's spike in rents too, so that's pricing we have a lot of complexes that would qualify in the past, but they've now raised it around $200 a month, which is now beyond what the program allows. It is people's, sometimes it is their past, they got evicted during the pandemic, which lots of people did, people think nobody did, lots of people were
Really?
evicted, yes.
I thought it wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's criminal backgrounds. Sometimes it's just, like I said, those 12 complexes got bought out by out-of-state investors and we just don't want to take people with assistance.
It seems like there are new apartment complexes going up all over Wichita. Why isn't your job getting easier?
Most, if you look at the sheer numbers, a lot of those apartment complexes that have come in the last 2, 3 or 4 years are really luxury apartments. Their rents are through the roof. But it's still a good thing. We need more housing at every level, okay? We absolutely need more housing at every level. I'm not saying do all, up here, but this helps. It does help because that means some people are gonna move out of other units that creates the step for other people to move up. We did, the census numbers show we have 44,000 households in Wichita that are cost burdened. It means they're paying more than 30% of their income for rent and utilities or mortgage and utilities. 44,000 households in need.
Sometimes just the deposit
Yes,
will put somebody unable to take a new apartment.
yes. We are
I
lucky
can't
right
argue
now.
with the landlords needing a deposit.
We are lucky right now, our housing stability program, which was the branch off of the emergency rent assistance, can provide security deposit assistance. And they are for a lot of these households, so that's one less barrier that they have.
From my experience, the HTC program is a little bit more palatable, especially for the neighborhoods that have affordable housing.
HTC?
LHTC.
Oh,
The tax
yeah,
credits go
low
to the
income
owners, yeah. How's that program faring in Wichita?
You know, if you look at the number of projects awarded by the state
Yeah.
compared to our population, we are not getting our share
Of HTC.
of the, yes, the
Is it
license.
because we're not getting our share or because the developers aren't going after it?
No, it's because the state actually gives preference to small rural projects.
Yeah, I got plenty to do.
It's unfortunate, and we're pressuring the state, we're having conversations to say, they created 9 housing incentives last year. 9, which was great, but 8 of them were rural only.
So is the MIH program also rural? I know.
Rural only, moderate income housing program, rural only,
You
under
know, when
60,000 population.
In the middle of this, in Topeka, they're trying to make homelessness officially illegal. And here we're hearing there is not near enough housing or willing landlords. At the same time, I don't know if it's gonna be successful or not, but they're trying. And my heart goes out to these folks, and I understand that they don't wanna go anywhere. Apparently we can't make them go somewhere. But this is just crazy.
I could talk homelessness for 3 hours, so I won't do that to you. Very complicated issue, very much layered with mental health and substance abuse on top of the housing challenges. We're trying to create some new and additional programs to expand opportunities for people experiencing homelessness. But at the same time, here we have hundreds of families that could end up homelessness if we can't get them leased out.
And they're the most likely to self-medicate because of all their issues.
Well, this is the second cab that I've been to that the state is not giving Wichita/Sedgwick County the funding that it's supposed to. So it seemed like maybe the lobbyists for Sedgwick County and the city of Wichita maybe need to get together and go tell Topeka to allocate the funds.
We did have that added to the.
I forget, I either hear somewhere that the state is investing in a residential facility.
Mental health
Mental
hospital.
health, yeah.
That's all over the board. There is, had this discussion about them passing It's all about appropriations and getting through the weeds, but I believe it's 30 bed, 50 bed.
Once old,
Yeah.
maybe new again.
I mean, no, we're very, very hopeful that that actually comes to fruition.
Well, we're having great discussions. There's not anything that we're gonna be able to do to make decisions to solve these issues. So I would ask that we let Sally proceed with her presentation.
Well, that was really, I was just showing you where we were and was gonna answer any questions or concerns that you had. That's what I'm.
Oh, on the housing notes, so the old, a representative from this board goes to the housing for federal grant. That is over, we're not doing that anymore, that was rolled into something else.
We just did a 2-year funding cycle for the last 2 years of our last consolidated plan. We're starting the consolidated plan process probably in June, May or June. We will take a year and we will be helping focus groups. We're gonna bring in a consultant. For our community development funding, we're required to create a 5-year plan. Sounds great, but to be honest with you, it makes you not very nimble. You know, I have to decide next year what's gonna happen in 2029, you know, and I'm like, if I could predict that, I'd go play the lottery. But what we do, and we have to create this plan, it's a 5-year plan, and then every year we do a small planning activity, which is just the 1 year. Now, the grants review committee takes part in that 1 year, right? And it will be re-engaged when we start doing the next consolidated plan and annual grant process. But this is the opportunity for us to meet and talk and figure out what are the priorities of our community? What should we be funding with the limited funding that we have? The challenge being, so I always say community development block grant, which we get just under $3 million of that a year. We can only use 1.1 million for public services. That's fine. But if we want to do something new, it means we have to cut something else. And that's really hard. And people call me all the time. They're like, why don't you have a program for this? And I'm like, well, we can put it in the consolidated plan, but are you cutting domestic violence shelter services? Are you cutting youth crime prevention? Or, you know, what is it that you think should take, you know, is lesser of a priority? And we use surveys and public meetings to try and really drill down on what it is we want to focus on that period. And we'll be starting that process, like I said, May or June. We're going to be bringing a consultant on board to help lead those conversations, right? It's not about what I want, it's about what does our community want, right? And feel is most important. And so you'll be hearing from us a lot, I'm sure. And we will have someone here in, I think it's April, for the annual plan. Yep, to talk about that last year of the last 5 years.
Well, my concern is still, it looks like you haven't looked at the neighborhoods. What is these programs doing to the neighborhoods? There's, you know, you need to look at that part too. And I don't know what kind of inspections you do, but I bet $1 it's not on the yard or the physical appearance of that. That's what tears down our neighborhoods. And I hate to say it, renters don't care. They just, they
That's
want
a
the money.
generalization. I have some renters, I eat off their floor.
Well, maybe you need to send some to our neighborhoods. I don't think we have all of those.
If you take
I know homeowners that are destroying their homes.
Well, I do too, but I
It's just not just renting. We got one we can't touch in our association.
So Sally, for the sake of time, and I think a gentleman in the audience, did you have a question?
That's what I was gonna say, so let me kind of get my brain spinning here. So in the SMSA, there's 44,000 voucher, section 8, no.
No, there's 44,000 families that are cost burdened. 44,000 families who actually would qualify for housing assistance.
If they apply.
Yeah,
No.
and we only have 3,123 vouchers.
3,123, and that is because,
It's appropriations, money.
From the feds.
so if you take that number, if you have 3,000 vouchers out there, what percentage would you say is single family homes, multifamily homes?
Majority is multifamily,
Okay,
absolutely.
That's good.
Some single family. You'll have people in multifamily who say that house with 8 kids doesn't do well in an apartment.
well, they did do well in our neighborhood, but
Is the waiting list still 2 years long?
It's hard to say. Before we can pull someone off the waiting list, we have to have someone go off the program. Right now, we have more vouchers programmed down the street on purpose. to try and get, maximum utilization, but in order to pull someone off, to put someone on the program, someone has to go off. And, I can tell you the average is about 35 families a month go off the program. So we can only possibly bring on 35 families a month.
And why
And
would
we
they,
have-
why would they go off? They move?
Yeah, sometimes they move, sometimes they die, unfortunately. Sometimes they're terminated for program violations. Sometimes their circumstances change, they get a great job, and all of a sudden don't qualify anymore. Those are the, when people call me and they're like, my grandma, but now, I'm like, congratulations.
Well, when you do your inspections, I'm only interested in residential property. The other things I think are absolutely fine, but what do you do on inspection of a residential property?
The property, the inspection criteria is prescribed by HUD. Okay, and whether it's in an apartment, a duplex, a triplex, a single family home, the protocol is the same. Okay, and it is decent, safe, and sanitary. Does it mean the bushes are pretty? No.
Can I understand what Sam's been saying? This just applies to our Bonnie Ray neighborhood as far as I know, but even good landlords, they take out all over landscape. They cut down the shrubbery, they cut down the trees. And of course, very few tenants own any lawn or garden tools whatsoever, even if they had the motivation. And so the fact that it might be getting torn up inside, doesn't affect us so much. It's just that it's very incremental drawing of barrenness, like desertification. And I can also tell you, this is my experience being a judge here in Wichita. We think a disabled person is someone blind or in a wheelchair. And my experience, 99%, aren't. I know several disabled young men now who are, it's mental, and they're violent, and destructive. I've had people come to me as well, can't do anything about it anymore. So that's a concern. If these are all people that we think of classically disabled or elderly, we think, well, what harm can they do? But an awful lot of them have mental disabilities, and they're very problematic. But our problem is that it's not that there's cars on cinder blocks and hound dogs chained to trees or things. It's just that the landlords just eviscerate anything that's green. And I'll stop there.
Because they have to care for it.
Yeah, it's like, it's just send a man around to mow once a month.
And I know this is.
So for the sake of time and the other staff who are here to present, would you be willing maybe to, Sam wants you and I to come to his homeowners association meeting or schedule another time so that we can get a little bit farther into the weeds? Because it seems like it's one specific neighborhood.
Well, I don't know, I don't think it's one neighborhood.
But it's
Our
concerns.
neighborhood is at that age right now where we're starting to get rentals. Some of these nicer neighborhoods, it's coming. And I think the city, sometimes I think they kind of overlook that.
I appreciate it.
We really work hard to try to keep our neighborhood nice.
Might be a good idea to bring him maybe to with us.
I agree. Okay, so
No,
Cory, can you
yeah.
put that in the minutes and we'll
yeah.
make that happen, okay? Okay. Is there any other questions for Senator?
Thanks for coming.
No,
Thank
thank
you
you
very
for
much.
coming,
Thank you.
and thank you to our guests for coming too. I'm glad you care about your neighborhood. I'm glad you care about Wichita, right?
I did have one question just came to mind. The $250,000, that's annual,
No, that was a one time.
one time. How do we get that increased? And if you got
Well,
it increased, you still couldn't find the product.
That depends. We've seen some other communities like Phoenix is paying like $4,000 on their signing bonuses because their circumstances are just even more dire. We kind of, I see what kind of response we're getting, whether it needs, and like I said, we continue to apply for emergency rent assistance through Treasury. I think their last reallocation request was like $30,000. And I totally laughed because I talked at it. I was like, $30,000, what's that? And then I was like, how many people we can help with $30,000? I had to step back a minute. And then, we can try and replenish some, if we see that we're getting the traction. If we're not, let's not spend the money there. We're working in other ways to try and encourage more affordable housing to be built and properly maintained. We're tackling this from many different ways. The voucher program, though, will help keep people off the street. Absolutely, not increase the number of people going.
We see problems, bigger problems than we have all over the country.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
But, you know, if we have this problem,
Mhm.
think about other cities, the problems they have, you know, so it's a big problem.
And I mean, we're evaluating, if we get, you know, the biomed center downtown, if Integra's coming to town, that's more housing we're going to need in our community at every level. And so we're really trying to look at how do we attract the developers to build the housing at every level.
If people don't have a place to
Well,
live, they're probably not gonna be looking for work.
Right, right, and we want to make sure, right, that they have the options that they need.
The developers, you know, I worked for a while in the real estate industry, the developers have investors.
Mhm.
And the investors we had were all mom and pops retirement programs, capers, Colorado pension, all that stuff, teachers, all that, and they're blind. They want the return. And when rents are flat, or, I mean, in Dallas, Fort Worth, back in the 70s, we were moving rents 20% a year. But we had people sleeping in tents who were working at TI. You know, so you had housing, so it's an issue that hasn't been faced, and the aging population of people who can't live in a single family, have to sell their house, or they need, you know, there's a lot of single people living in single family homes. There's one person there. Because they lost their spouse or whatever, so it's a big, that exacerbates the problem, so.
It's
you've
an
got your
adaptive
hands full.
challenge, right?
Oh, it is definitely an
Adaptive challenge. You've got to get those training. This is not a technical challenge, this is an adaptive challenge.
And the other thing that it makes it really even harder for us is because our community is so affordable. So I work with our nonprofit developers to build a single family infill home, and when I first got here, they could build it for 160. And they could sell it for 100, right? Now they're over 200, 220 to build that same modest 3-bedroom home, and it's still going, we might get 105 for it, right? How do you do that? From the business perspective, who in their right mind would do that? Who builds a house for $220,000 knowing you're only gonna sell it for 105? And can we be putting $115,000 in subsidy in one unit? Right? No, definitely a challenge.
Sally, thank you so much for coming to speak with us
No
today.
problem.
Yeah, thank you.
Happy to.
Thank you, Sally, and we will arrange a meeting with
Yeah.
Bonnie Bray, Homeowner Association, and MABCD, and.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a good
Sally.
evening.
Thank you.
So on staff reports, going back to the agenda, there is no fire department report this evening, so we will turn to Officer is it Larson? Yep. If you would like to give your report, that'd be fantastic, and thank you for your patience.
Hi, I'm Officer Larison. I'm out at Patrol East covering for Officer Shelton tonight. So our team is starting a special assignment actually tomorrow. We'll be working a couple times a week on a larceny problem that we're having out east with multiple stores. So we'll be adjusting our schedules for the next several weeks to accommodate that. And this week is St. Patty's Day. So we are doing a St. Patty's Day event with Stepstone, the domestic violence shelter, on Friday, and then also preparing for an Easter event in the Hilltop area for Easter. So just got a couple of things going. And that's about all I have.
Thank you, and we'll make sure, because you're filling in, and thank you for being here to get to data, the latest report, and Corey can work on that, we'll make sure that it gets sent out to y'all.
Question, what was going on at 9th Street in Woodlawn on our way in here? There was about 5 police cars, a van, and a lot of activity going on.
9th and Hillside. I would have to ask, I'm not sure.
Woodlawn.
Oh, 9th and Woodlawn, I'm sorry. I would have to ask, I'm not sure. I came from a training, so I don't have any idea.
All right.
I looked to make sure it was none of our band members.
I know.
To make sure or to report.
Thank you, Officer Larson.
Thank you.
For your service, be
Thank
safe.
you.
All right, John, are you with us for Park and Rec? Hey, John.
How's it going?
Good.
John Sidwell, Recreation Supervisor at Boston Rec Center. And I would say my favorite thing about Wichita, one of them is probably just how we have a lot of places you can go to find out about our city's new history and also our country's history, like Old Cowtown Museum, Keeper of the Plains, Museum of World Treasures, Aviation, African American Museum, you name it. So I would say that's one of my favorite things to do in my free time is to go visit those places and encourage everyone else to do the same. And then as far as things going through Park and Rec, starting next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, I'm starting a homeschool learning hub that allows people to sign up from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Well, they'll get to learn an hour of art, an hour of physical education, an hour of culinary, and an hour of STEM. And then we will be doing also our spring registration has begun. And then summer camp registration has started as well for specialty camps, and then UTech Inc. Technology camps over here at Boston as well. And then as far as coming up, with Easter coming up, Saturday, April 1st, at Watson, we have our Easter extravaganza. It runs from 10 a.m. to noon, and there's an egg hunt, jelly bean counting contest, and some other contests, and then Easter basket giveaways, and of course the infamous photo with the Easter bunny. And the price for that is $5 per car, and the gates will open at 9:45. And then finally, since COVID, Boston hasn't offered the free lunch program. But now that everything's kind of smoothed out a little better, I've put in an application for us to be a site this summer again, starting the summer with the summer food service program for a free lunch program. But outside of that, it's just our normal routine. So.
Any
That's awesome, John.
questions?
Thank you.
Right, thank you, John, and thank you for being patient with us. We appreciate it. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Have a great evening. Last but not least, I'm so sorry.
You're going to the
Yeah.
library.
This way you get to hear all the housing, right?
Absolutely. Educational, like you all said.
Yeah.
Every day is an education. Well, John Clary, Rockwell Branch Manager here at the library. Favorite thing about Wichita is the bike trails. I love it. When the weather's nice, I try to ride every day.
That's awesome.
So here's what's happening in the library this month. The big 2023 Big Read Wichita. This year we're exploring Can't You Talk About Something More Pleasant by Roz Chast. This is a graphic memoir about Chast's experiences providing end-of-life care for her parents. The book is funny, sad, and insightful and relatable. A schedule of events for the 6-week Big Read program is available at bigreadwichita.org. If you need to apply for your passport, you now have 2 Wichita Public Library locations that can process your paperwork. The Alfred branch at 3447 South Meridian, and now the Evergreen branch at 2601 North Arkansas. Call the branches to make your appointment at least 24 hours in advance. Appointment times are available at both locations, noon to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and noon to 5 p.m. Friday and Saturday. The Wichita Public Library is working to help build awareness about the Affordable Connectivity Program, also known as ACP. It's an FCC program. ACP helps ensure that households can afford the broadband they need for work, school, health care, and more. Technology trainers and district community service reps will be available at 2 branches this month to help residents enroll for this program. March 15th and 22nd from noon to 6 at the Walters branch, 4195 East Harry and the Old Wichita Mall. And March 17th, 24th, and 31st, 1:30 to 5:30 at the Evergreen branch, 2601 North Arkansas. To see if you qualify, residents should visit affordableconnectivity.gov for more information. And finally, the library is here for spring breakers. And we have a great schedule of programs for kids and teens, March 13th through 17th during spring break week. Make a visit to your Wichita Public Library as part of your plans.
Any
Spring break.
questions for Jeff?
Doing great.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for all you do. Thank you. All right, no new business this evening, which is surprising compared to the robust agendas we've had in the past few months, but it's all good stuff. So with that, our next meeting will be Monday, April 10th at 6:30, right back here. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Do you need a motion to receive and file?
We never do. We've
Oh, we
never-
don't?
No,
Okay.
we never have.
Never
We
mind
can,
then.
But no, but way to be on it.
Then I second the motion.
Second to the motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Bye.
Bye, Alicia, bye, Jennifer.
Bye. Have a good night.